General Lin opened his mouth, wanting to say something. However, after seeing the young man's persistence, he held back his words and turned around helplessly. My name is Murong Qing. The young man stretched out his hand toward Nanqiu and smiled faintly. Sunlight shone upon his handsome face. Oh, Nanqiu looked at the young man's hand and frowned. Mother said I cannot just let boys touch me. Therefore, she grabbed Ah Bao's little paw and touched the young man's hand. 1 inch. My name is Xia Xia, and this is my cat, Ah Bao. Meow. Ah Bao mewed obediently. General Lin's face darkened when he saw Nankai's action. Is this little girl displaying contempt toward His Highness? His Highness was kind enough to approach her, but she does this to him? Murong Qing did not think much about it. He smiled faintly as he said, Maiden Xia, come in. It's too hot outside. You look weak, and it's not good to stay under the sun for a long time. Nanqiu was somewhat at a loss. Is he talking about me? Nanqiu puffed up her cheeks and said, I'm not weak. I'm very strong. Looking at such a soft and cute little girl, the smile on Murong Qing's face widened. Come on board. He shook his sleeves and walked into the sedan chair. Nanqiu was indeed too lazy to walk, and she did not have the heart to let Ah Bao carry her. Therefore, Nanqiu followed the young man into the sedan chair. The sedan chair was really huge, but Nanqiu still remembered Feng Ruking's words to keep a distance from boys. She then put her hand on her cheek, looking out of the window. Ah Bao lay next to her, resting. Murong Qing's gaze was fixed upon Nanqiu. He smiled gently as he watched her unblinkingly. It seemed me for extra chapters. He had never seen an adorable girl like her. Even just looking at her face made him feel happy. This was something that he had never felt since he fell ill. If he could, he wanted to protect her smile until the end of his life. However, even Murong Qing did not understand why he felt this way when they had just met for the first time. Until many years later, he suddenly understood that many things were already predetermined from the beginning. However, the only thing he could do in this life was to protect her smile at all costs. What? Nanqiu turned and met Murong Qing's gaze. She frowned as she asked, Why do you keep staring at me? The young girl's voice was still pleasant even when she was questioning him. Murong Qing took out a handkerchief and handed it to Nanqiu. Your face is dirty. Clean it. Nanqiu pouted. Does he despise me? So he doesn't like to see the dirt on my face. However, looking at the handkerchief handed to her by the young man, Nanqiu was silent for a moment but still took it and said, Thank you. This handkerchief was very clean with the scent of the unique herb on the young man's body. Perhaps the young man had been taking many herbs for a long time. Nanqiu took out her water bottle, poured some water on the handkerchief, and then wiped the dirt on her small face. A beautiful and delicate face appeared to the young man after Nanqiu wiped the dust off her face. The young man looked a little dumbfounded. This little girl was so beautiful with fair skin and delicate features like a painting. So beautiful that people could not take their eyes off of her. Nanqiu saw that Murong Qing had been staring at her face. She touched her face, confused. I have not wiped it clean? It is clean. The young man lowered his head, and his face started to turn red, seemingly a little shy. Since he was young, he rarely had contact with people. He was always in the palace, not to mention that now in front of him was such a good-looking girl. Oh, Nanqiu held her chin with her hand. A light flashed in her big beautiful eyes. By the way, what are you doing here in this savage land? We're looking for Flower King. Flower King? Well, the physician said that there is a Flower King here. The fruit can cure me, but that fruit is useless after leaving the flower for an hour. So it cannot be taken back to the palace, and I must go in person. Nanqiu looked at the young man with some confusion. How come I have not heard of any fruit that becomes inedible in 1 hour after leaving the mother plant? I'm not sure. The imperial physician said that, but I just heard on the way here that a silver wolf guards the flower. The king of silver wolves. I'm afraid this journey will be full of danger. Silver wolf, Nanqiu frowned. A figure vaguely emerged in her mind, but it was too vague and too long ago, so she could not recall it. She vaguely remembered that. Was it a big dog? Wolves and dogs were of the same ancestor 500 years ago. Otherwise, the snow wolf would not have learned to bark. So, every time she heard about wolves, she would think of a dog. Don't worry. Just leave this to me. Nan Chiu swore and patted her chest. I can help you, me for extra chapters. Ooh. The young man smiled. That wolf is so fierce. Nan Chiu was a bit distressed. She could not tell Murongqing that the spirit beasts were all obedient to her. She looked at the kitten lying next to her, and her eyes lit up. A Bao is fierce too. It can help us. A Bao was stunned. A Bao was just about to refute Nan Chiu when it suddenly noticed that Murongqing was scanning it as if he did not believe its fierceness. It immediately meowed fiercely and scratched Murongqing. Fortunately, Murongqing blocked his handsome face with his hand, and the claw scratched the back of his hand, leaving a bloody scratch. A Bao. Nan Chiu frowned and scolded, What are you doing? A Bao grunted and flopped proudly on the chair. This human is looking down at me, so I have to show him how fierce I am. A Bao. Maiden Xia Xia, Murongqing smiled. I'm fine. No need to blame it. Oh, that's good. Nan Chiu sighed in relief. I was afraid you would make me pay for it. So it's better if I scold A Bao first. Murongqing was speechless. He somewhat felt that Xia Xia was too cute, completely different from the other women he had met in his father's palace. He thought about it for a moment and said, Don't worry. I have money, and if you don't have money, I can give some to you. I have a lot of money to spend. Nan Chiu frowned. No, you just don't have to ask me for compensation. I don't want your money. Mother said only to take what belongs to you, and those who get free money will be unlucky. Murongqing was speechless. This is not considered free money, right? He laughed helplessly but did not say more. Even Murongqing did not understand why he would say such words to her when it was obviously the first time they met. He did not know that Nan Chiu refused him not just because of the unfortunate thing but also because he would not be the one in her heart. Until after that person appeared, she would willingly accept all of his. In a desert land, Flower King was curled up, hiding aside. It looked somewhat timid before the silver wolf, somewhat afraid. Ever since it met the Wolf King hiding here to recover from its injuries 3 years ago, it had never been able to leave this place. The Wolf King often lay not far away, watching it. Whenever it tried to escape, the Wolf King would beat it up hard. The more it thought about it, the more aggrieved it was. If it could cry, perhaps its tears would have turned into a river. The silver wolf got up from the ground. Its fur was stunning. If it could be stripped down to a piece of clothing, the one who wore it would become the center of attention. The wolf's blue eyes were clear and beautiful, but its gaze was as cold as a knife when it looked at Flower King. Flower King stretched its small head and shrank back again, pitifully. In 3 more days, you will be able to bloom. The Wolf King's clear and clean voice made Flower King tremble in fear. Unfortunately, my wound has not yet healed. Flower King was speechless. But it's fine. After you bloom, you'll go find her. It once heard that little girls love flowers. Me for extra chapters. And Flower King, it should be more pleasing to the eye than ordinary flowers. But it did not know whether that little girl still remembered it or not. Every time it thought of her, the Wolf King's eyes would turn gentle, and a bright smile would appear on its face. This was the first time in 3 years that Flower King saw the Wolf King smile, and it was so scared that it almost jumped up, wishing to disappear immediately. However, the Wolf King had been guarding it for 3 years. In these 3 years, its life was worse than death. Suddenly, the Wolf King's ears twitched. A cold light flashed in its blue eyes, sneering. There are humans again. 2 years ago, someone spread the news about Flower King, and many people came to look for it. Even though it never recovered from its injuries, it was more than enough to deal with these people. Initially, according to its former nature, it would kill any human who came to compete for the things it was guarding. However, somehow, whenever it wanted to kill them, an innocent little face would emerge in its mind. The little girl would smile gently, and her voice was so pleasant, just like before, "Big doggy." With that, in that instant, its heart would soften. The little girl was human, and she might hate to see others killed. That was why it only drove those greedy people away and did not hurt them. Because of this, more people returned just to compete for Flower King. Just then, the sounds of horse hooves could be heard coming from the back. The Wolf King frowned. A cold light flashed in its eyes. Those humans are coming again. It glanced warningly at Flower King, and only after seeing the flower trembling did it turn around and look at the people coming behind it. There are still a few days left before the flower will bloom, and I won't let humans steal it away. It wanted to bring the flower to the little girl. Among that group of people, the leader was a middle-aged man with cold and fierce eyes filled with murderous intent. However, the Wolf King only sneered in disdain. Another group of weak humans. Some of them looked really confident, and they all came to snatch its flower away. Go away. This is not the place for you to be. The Wolf King's voice was raspy. It was actually somewhat lovely to listen to. General Lin had just stopped when he heard these words from the Wolf King, and his expression changed dramatically. This wolf can talk? Why didn't the imperial physician mention it? A wolf that can talk, how strong is it? But that flower is the only hope to rescue His Highness. I can't give up, General Lin gritted his teeth. Your Highness, this wolf is somewhat strong. You must not come down. Well, think of a way to lure it away and then take the flower from it. The spirit beasts are not smart enough. We can't fight it, but we can track it. The Wolf King was speechless. Its eyes bloodshot, gradually turning cold. These humans are too arrogant. Even if it had not recovered from its injuries today, it was still easy to deal with these people. Humans. The Wolf King raised its gaze proudly and fixed its gaze upon the group of people in front of it. It's better if you leave now. I don't want to kill anyone for her sake, but I also can't allow anyone to snatch the things under my guard. General Lin seemed to have sensed that the wolf would kill them. Cold sweat poured down his forehead, but he still did not take half a step back. Me for extra chapters. Perhaps to him, for the sake of His Highness, no matter how difficult it was, he had to take it head-on. He gritted his teeth and said, "Go." However, just as he said that, a clear voice came from inside the sedan chair. Wait, let me talk to it. General Lin frowned impatiently, and there was even some disdain in his eyes. What does this little girl think the wolf is? A dog she raises at home? Does she want to talk to it? Ridiculous. However, without waiting for anyone to stop her, the little girl had already stepped out of the sedan chair. Her long snow-colored dress was still dirty, but her small face was so beautiful that it was hard to ignore. The little girl's eyes were as clear as water as she walked out smilingly. The Wolf King stopped, and its proud gaze fell upon the little girl. The moment it saw the little girl, its heart felt like it was hit hard. It almost stopped beating. Maiden Xia Xia, General Lin's face turned cold. Hurry back. This is not a place for you to be. The wolf is not a dog. How reasonable do you think it can be? Nanqiu seemed to hate what General Lin said. Her expression darkened. So what if it's a wolf? It looks like a good wolf. Besides, this wolf looks like a dog. From the moment Nanqiu appeared, the Wolf King's gaze was only fixed upon her and never moved away. For 10 years, her scent had remained in its mind. It had never forgotten it. It wished that one day, the moment it met her, she could recognize it at a glance. Seemed like she did not remember it. The Wolf King looked somewhat disappointed. After all, it had remembered her for so many years, but in the end she had forgotten it. Nanqiu walked toward the Wolf King. Murongqing came down from the sedan chair and saw Nanqiu walking toward the Wolf King. His heart tightened. Maiden Xia Xia, it's dangerous. Don't go. However, Xia Xia did not seem to hear him and continued walking toward the Wolf King. Her pace was gentle, but it landed heavily on the Wolf King's heart. Wolfie, can you give me that flower? Xia Xia blinked and smiled brightly. The Wolf King immediately cheered up after hearing Xia Xia's words. It turned around, walked to Flower King, grabbed it with one bite, and walked towards Xia Xia. Xia Xia smiled happily. She hugged the Wolf King and kissed its forehead. The Wolf King was stunned by the kiss as if it had been struck by electricity. It froze, staring at Xia Xia dumbly. Murongqing saw the Wolf King gave Flower King to Nanqiu, and a doubt flashed in his eyes. Everyone said that the Wolf King was fierce, but why was he so gentle to Maiden Xia Xia? He could not figure it out and simply stopped thinking about it. Maybe Maiden Xia Xia has a charm that attracts spirit beasts. Flower King trembled when it was handed over to Xia Xia by the Wolf King. If it were not for the Wolf King staring at it from the side, it would have jumped down and run away. But when will this flower bear fruit? Nan Qiu turned to Murong Qing and looked at him blankly. Murong Qing was silent for a few moments. I'm not sure. Why don't we bring it back first? All right, Nan Qiu blinked. She did not know if the fruit was effective, but at least she had to wait for Murong Qing to recover before she could leave. She would have been lost in this savage land had Murong Qing not helped her. My father doesn't want me anyway, so I'll follow you back first. I'll leave when you have recovered. Me for extra chapters. The little girl looked so pitiful when she said that her father did not want her anymore. The Wolf King followed Nan Qiu, its face expressionless. Nan Qiu turned to look at the Wolf King, confused. Are you going to go with me? The Wolf King nodded and gently responded. It doesn't matter if you don't remember me. I only want to protect you in this life. Your Highness, General Lin's expression darkened. The Wolf King was too dangerous. If we brought this back and it went crazy, I'm afraid that the whole imperial city would suffer. Murong Qing smiled. The Wolf King has handed the flower to us. Moreover, Maiden Xia Xia likes it. So let's bring it back. General Lin sighed and looked at Murong Qing helplessly. After all, he knew his status, and if His Highness had agreed, there was no way General Lin could stop him. However, he felt that the Wolf King's gaze toward Murong Qing was filled with hatred. It was as if Murong Qing had deliberately snatched away something that belonged to him. The Wolf King gave Flower King on its own. It's not like we snatched the flower from it, so why is it looking at His Highness so fiercely? It's already late. We should go back now. Maiden Xia Xia, you should come into the sedan chair with me. Murong Qing smiled shyly. No need. Without waiting for Nan Qiu to step onto the sedan chair, the Wolf King spoke coldly. The moment it turned to look at Nan Qiu, its eyes became a lot gentler. I'll just carry you. All right, Nan Qiu smiled brightly. Perhaps it was the influence given to her by Feng Ruqing since childhood that made her comfortable to get close to the spirit beasts. Compared to sitting in the sedan chair with Murong Qing, she was more willing to follow the Wolf King. Murong Qing did not force Nan Qiu, he just looked at the Wolf King with mixed emotions, but he did not think much about it. He then turned around and smiled faintly. It's getting late. Let's go back. General Lin's throat was a little hoarse as he looked at the Wolf King and said, but if we bring back this wolf, it might go crazy. The Wolf King's gaze sank. Nan Qiu pouted unhappily. The wolf won't go crazy. It's a spirit beast and it can think like us. The difference between a spirit beast and an ordinary beast was that a spirit beast could think like a human and would not attack other people recklessly. Unless someone provoked it first. General Lin, Murong Qing frowned. I trust Maiden Xia Xia. General Lin sighed and smiled bitterly. He had always felt that the spirit beasts were still dangerous to people, but he had no choice and could only obey the order. Nan Qiu jumped onto the wolf's back. The little girl's face was stunningly beautiful when she smiled. He said he knew how to leave this place. I'm lost, and he's willing to help me, so I have to wait for him to recover before leaving. When I leave, he'll bring you home. I have many spirit beasts at home that can keep you company. The Wolf King smiled gently. All right. Oh, my name is Ming. Don't you have a last name? Then your name will be Nan Ming. All right. It seemed that no matter what she said, the Wolf King would always agree with her. Me for extra chapters. General Lin's face darkened. He did not know why this wolf was following this little girl, but it was simply ridiculous for this little girl to say that her family raised many spirit beasts. Spirit beasts preferred freedom and would never want to be kept at home. It must be just some ordinary little pets that she thought were spirit beasts. Perhaps, after this wolf followed her, those small pets might not even be enough to be eaten by it. Nan Qiu kissed the Wolf King's head smilingly. You're so pretty. I like you. The Wolf King lowered its gaze. Flower King, who was shivering at the side, suddenly felt that its face turned a little red. Murong Qing pursed his lips enviously. Xia Xia had agreed to go home with him, but he felt like she did not really trust him. However, Xia Xia had just met the wolf, and she already had such a good relationship with it. Perhaps, this was the difference between animals and people. She could easily get along with the spirit beasts, but it was normal to be a little wary of people. Moreover, the wolf was no different from a dog in her eyes. Of course, she would feel more comfortable with it. Flower King curled up, wishing to disappear, afraid that these people would eat it. That had become a lifelong nightmare for it since it met the Wolf King. Your Highness, let's go. General Lin did not even look at Nanqiu. To him, this girl was nothing but good-looking, so he did not understand why Murongqing would be so nice to a girl he had just met. Yunqing Kingdom. It was a small kingdom with very little interaction with the outside world. At this moment, within the imperial palace of Yunqing Kingdom, a beautiful woman with a light yellow dress walked to the imperial gardens smilingly. How long has Murongqing been away? Empress, it has been almost half a month. Half a month. The Empress lowered her gaze. A cold light flashed in her eyes. However, this cold light disappeared quickly, and then a smile was plastered upon that noble face again. He should have been back by now. I don't know if something has happened to him out there. The Empress smiled faintly. Let's go. I have to see the Emperor. Murongqing was like a thorn in her heart. She had to endure the pain if she did not pull it out. Inside the imperial study room, a middle-aged man in a dragon robe sat on a throne. His face was cold as he read through a memo in his hand. Just at this moment, a eunuch's voice was heard from outside the room. Emperor, the Empress requests to see you. Hearing that the Empress was there, Murongqing frowned and said, "Let her in." The guard pushed open the door. Murongqing looked up at the woman who had just entered through the door. His face remained expressionless. No one could read any emotion from it. Empress, is there something wrong? The Empress pursed her lips and smiled faintly. Emperor, Qing'e has been gone for such a long time now and has not returned yet. I'm worried. Should I send out a search team to look for Qing'e? Murongqing replied indifferently, the people I sent to follow Qing'e are all the skilled masters. General Lin also brought troops to protect him, so there is no need for you to go there yourself. Me for extra chapters. If he allowed her to go and something were to happen to her, those people would have to protect her, and this meant less manpower to keep Qing'e safe. Moreover, he believed in General Lin's capabilities. Emperor, the Empress smiled bitterly. Before my sister died, I promised her that I would take good care of Qing'e. I am now Qing'e's mother and her great-aunt. How can I just sit back and do nothing? If it weren't for Qing'e's health, fearing that he wouldn't last long, and State Preceptor said that he must go on his own to get Flower King, I would never have allowed him to go to that savage land. When Murongqing heard this from the Empress, his expression softened slightly, but his eyes remained emotionless. I understand your feelings. Qing'e is a good man. I believe that he will be fine and will return safely. The Empress smirked. The one guarding Flower King is the strong and fierce Wolf King. Perhaps Murongqing will not come back this time. And don't blame me for this. Back then, she fell in love with the Emperor, but he wanted to marry Feng Ying, who had passed away early. Fortunately, she and Feng Ying were good friends. Therefore, before Feng Ying passed away, she had asked the Emperor to marry her as his new queen to protect her son. However, Feng Ying did not know that she had long been jealous of her. She was so in love with Murongqing. How could she allow a son who was not her blood and flesh to remain in the world? Therefore, she had asked State Preceptor to trick Murongqing into going to the savage land, and now he must have been eaten by the wolf. This time, she had come to the Emperor just to show her fake concern. She already knew that the Emperor would never allow her to go to Murongqing. Even if he did agree, she would only go there to bring back his son's dead body. Emperor, they'll take my leave now. I believe that Qing'e will return safely. The Empress smiled. All right, you can go now. The Emperor waved his hand expressionlessly. The Empress turned around and left. However, just as she stepped out of the imperial study room, a palace servant hurriedly came up to her and reported respectfully, Empress, the prince has returned. What? The Empress' face changed dramatically. A cold light flashed in her eyes as she said coldly, Did you just say that he has returned? Impossible. The Wolf King is so powerful. He can't have returned safely. The prince has returned and brought a girl back. She has now entered the prince's residence. They will probably come to meet the emperor later. The palace servant lowered her head, not daring to look directly at the empress. The empress smiled coldly. He brought a girl back? Empress, according to the report, the prince seems to like that girl. He had arranged for her to stay at his place before coming to the palace, so he must have feelings for her. That's good. This time, she failed to kill Murong Qing in the savage land, but there were always other opportunities. She would never let him ruin her plan. Let's go. I want to see what kind of girl can make Murong Qing fall in love and bring her back here. She lowered her gaze, hiding the dark light in her eyes. The prince's residence was located in a quiet street, far from the busy city. Murong Qing left the palace after the former empress passed away. He felt that the palace's environment was not very suitable for him to recuperate, and the emperor had allowed him to leave the palace. Murong Qing chose this place on his own. It was quiet, and no one would disturb him. Moreover, Murong Qing's health had not improved in these few years. The emperor and the current empress did not allow him to interact with other people, so he had no friends. The emperor did not allow people to disturb him for his health. As for the empress, me for extra chapters. No one knew what her real purpose was. Wolfie, the little girl held her cheeks with her hands. She blinked and gazed at the beautiful Wolf King in front of her. Her smile was as bright as the sunshine, and it instantly shone into its heart. Are you really going to be here with me? The Wolf King nodded slightly, its voice low. The little girl smiled. I'll tell you a secret. My father doesn't want me anymore. I can't go back home. Otherwise, I would not have followed Murong Qing to this place. My father abandoned me too quickly, and I did not GT to prepare some money. So I can only stay in here for now. When my mother knows where I am, she will come to bring me home. Ah Bao, who was lying next to the little girl, huffed. Little princess is staying here because of Murong Qing's conditions. He has taken little princess out of the savage land and brought her here. Therefore, little princess can't just leave without repaying his kindness. However, State Preceptor did not want little princess anymore. So, she has nowhere to go. State Preceptor said that little princess is not allowed to set foot in Lu Yun Kingdom. So, she could only wait for eldest princess to come and take her home. I will stay with you. The Wolf King squatted on the ground. Even its lying down movement was so elegant and beautiful it was difficult to look away. Nan Chiu looked at the Wolf King and then turned to Ah Bao, who looked like a pug, and suddenly she felt like Ah Bao was a little ugly compared to the Wolf King. Just then, a voice was suddenly heard from up ahead. Nan Chiu raised her gaze, confused. The Empress has arrived. This voice was somewhat shrill, cutting through the heavy air and into Nan Kai's ears. Nan Chiu looked up and saw a noblewoman ambling forward, surrounded by a group of palace servants and eunuchs. The woman looked so elegant, with an expressionless face and a bit of arrogance in her brows. Even the Wolf King crouching on the ground immediately got up after seeing the woman. Its eyes turned cold. Nan Kai's eyes filled up with cautiousness as she felt that this woman came with an evil intention. Do you need something here? This little girl is so beautiful. The Empress had lived in the palace with many beauties, but she had never seen such a stunningly beautiful girl like Nan Chiu. Even she, as a woman, was a little stunned when she looked at her. No wonder Murong Qing brought her back. Such a woman is too good at bewitching people's minds. How dare you? A palace servant next to her sternly shouted, Why aren't you kneeling when you see the Empress? Nan Kai's face sank slightly. She pursed her lips and looked a little annoyed. However, the Empress raised her hand and smiled. No need to be so polite. Little girl, you are the girl Qinger brought back this time. You are indeed beautiful and pleasing to the eye. She reached out to hold Nan Kai's hand. However, Nan Chiu did not like to be touched by strangers since she was young. She raised her hand to slap away the Empress' hand and took a few steps back. The Empress' hand froze in midair, her face darkened. This little girl is beautiful but rude. It seems like Murong Qing likes her only because of her appearance. Little girl, I'm the Empress of this kingdom and also Qinger's mother. Every girl in this world wanted to win her heart. Even if Qing'er was not well, at least he was still a prince. All young girls wished to be with him. Me for extra chapters. Oh, Nan Qiu responded expressionlessly. It's better if you go back first because Murong Qing is not here. If you want to find him, you have to come back later. The person in front of her was Murong Qing's mother, but she made Nan Qiu feel uncomfortable. I don't like this woman. She looks like those sultry bitches who always surround Brother Fuchen all the time. Who do they think they are? Brother Fuchen only likes Qing Han, but there are always people with impure hearts who want to be with him because he's a spirit herb. The Empress stiffened and was also a little angry. However, she understood that now was not the time to cause trouble. Little girl, if you want to marry into the imperial family, you have to get my permission first. Qing'er has always been filial. Do you think he will take you as his wife if I disagree? A silver light suddenly flashed as soon as the Empress spoke. The Empress felt pain and fell backward. Her people did not have the time to hold her, and she directly hit the wall and almost broke her bones. Empress! The palace servants were shocked and hurriedly went forward to help the Empress up. Those guards also drew their weapons in their hands. However, when they saw that the one standing in front of them was a wolf, all of them did not dare to attack, and their hands were trembling a little. How dare you! The Empress stood up from the ground and pointed at Nan Qiu angrily. Seeing that the Wolf King wanted to make a move, the young girl quickly stopped it. Little Wolfie, the Wolf King stopped. It glanced at the Empress' face coldly as it walked toward Nan Qiu. Its pace was firm like a mighty king. The Empress' expression was slightly stiff. Somehow, she felt that this Wolf King's posture was even more domineering than the Emperor's. If it were not for this wolf, she would have already taught this little girl the rules properly. She needed to understand the palace rules if she wanted to marry into the imperial family. Nan Qiu smiled as she walked toward the Empress. She somewhat deliberately lowered her head, looking down at the Empress. My little Wolfie is not very good-tempered. Of course, I also do not like people pointing their fingers at me. The little girl smiled. So if you dare to point your finger at me again, I don't care if you are Murong Qing's mother. I will make you lose a finger. The Empress' face turned pale. Ever since she married into the palace, everyone had respected her. All the favorite concubines in the palace did not dare to disrespect her. It was because she was the former Empress' closest friend. The Emperor loved the former Empress. It was because of this relationship she became the new Empress, and the Emperor also obeyed her in everything and would never let anyone bully her. Therefore, it had been a long time since anyone had dared to treat her with such disrespect. Little girl, this is my palace, and I am the Empress. Oh, Nan Qiu shrugged. But I don't like you. My wolf and my cat will eat whoever I don't like. The Wolf King turned to look at the Empress coldly. A Bao, who was lying on the ground taking a nap, also raised its head. Although it was not as ruthless as the Wolf King, one could still feel its displeasure. Me for extra chapters. The Empress was furious, but the Wolf King had really scared her just now, so she did not dare to act rashly again. Moreover, the Wolf King looked so powerful and somewhat familiar. The Empress frowned, pondered for a moment, and her face instantly turned paler. Isn't this the wolf that was guarding Flower King? She had seen a portrait of it before, and this wolf looked just like the one in the portrait. No wonder Murong Qing could come back safely this time. This little girl has actually tamed this wolf. Perhaps with her beauty? The Empress sneered. Such a vixen? She even wants the spirit beast. The same as Murong Qing's late mother. Both like to seduce men, a group of bitches. The Empress did not dare to be as reckless as before after she knew the wolf's identity. She then smiled faintly. Little girl, I was just joking with you. You are Qing'er's guest, and of course, you're my guest too. I'm just afraid that you will be in trouble if you don't understand the palace's rules. I just want to remind you kindly. After all, you will have to face more royal women in the future, and if you do not know the rules, people will not respect you here. Nan Kai's face gradually sank. She silently grabbed a brick and waited. However, the Empress was lucky today. Just as Nan Qiu was planning to smash her head, a voice came from outside the courtyard. "Aunt, what are you doing here?" Aunt? Nanchiu froze for a moment. Didn't this woman say that she's Murong Qing's mother? How did she become an aunt? Nanchiu was a little confused. She seemed puzzled. Murong Qing did not expect the Empress to come to his place. He rushed toward Nanchiu and was about to say something. However, he suddenly froze for a moment after he saw that brick she was holding behind her. "Maiden Xia Xia, this brick? Oh, I want to smash someone with it," Nanchiu honestly said. "Smash someone?" Murong Qing was even more dumbfounded. "What happened before I came back?" However, Nanchiu threw the brick to the ground and smiled. "For your sake, I will not do it for now. But if she comes to bother me again, I will not be polite." Sister Qinghan said, "If someone shouts at me, just slap her with the brick. After all, my mother will back me up." The Empress' face turned pale. "This girl? No wonder she's so rude. She's just like her rude mother. Then did your mother tell you that there are some people that you can't mess with?" The Empress gritted her teeth. "Aunt." Murong Qing's face sank. With that, he made the Empress shut her mouth. After all, Murong Qing was still the Emperor's most beloved son. She needed to respect him. Fortunately, Murong Qing was filial to her. He was quite obedient, but his existence still hurt her like a thorn in her heart. She just did not expect that Murong Qing would rebuke her for a girl. Ridiculous. The Empress sneered. "Aunt, please go back for now." Murong Qing glanced at the Empress helplessly. "Father has something to ask you." The Empress looked at Nanchiu coldly before turning around and left arrogantly. Murong Qing said with some embarrassment, "Maiden Xia Xia, I'm sorry my aunt. Your family is really messy, me for extra chapters." Nanchiu pouted. Murong Qing's face turned red. "After my mother died, she entrusted my aunt to take care of me. Does taking care of you require her to marry your father?" Nanchiu sneered. "If one day my father died, my uncle will never take advantage of that situation." Ah Bao was speechless. "Indeed, because your uncle is younger than you and is only 8 or 9 years old. And he's a phoenix. Eldest princess would rather get drunk in a nest of women than marry a phoenix. Your father is not dead yet. But you curse him so much. Are you not afraid he will beat you?" Murong Qing froze, hesitated for a moment. "My father is the emperor. It is not the same for him as for a woman. If his father died, his mother would not remarry. However, his father was the emperor supposedly with many concubines, and it was normal for him to have many wives." Nanchiu froze. She stared at Murong Qing for a moment before shaking her head and smiling faintly. "I'm not cursing my mother. I just gave an example. If one day her soul flies to heaven, my father will never marry again in this life." Ah Bao was speechless again. When little princess mentioned state preceptor, she just directly said if he died. Now, when she talked about eldest princess, she was more cautious with her words. She indeed regards them differently. Murong Qing's gaze was blank. He hesitantly looked at Nanchiu, frowning. "All these years, I used to see men with many concubines. I've never met someone like what Maiden Xia Xia said. My grandmother was kidnapped and kept for 20 years, and my grandfather thought she had passed away." Nanchiu lifted her head to look at Murong Qing. "But he has never forgotten my grandmother and did not take any concubine. Oh, that noble consort does not count because grandfather and she did not live like a husband and wife. Grandfather only loved grandmother in his life. This is the kind of love that women in the world should be looking for." To Murong Qing, it was customary for a man to have concubines. However, she did not like that practice at all. Murong Qing was slightly stunned. He pursed his lips and did not speak. It seemed that he was still thinking about Nan Kai's words. Nanchiu did not say more and turned around. "I will leave after you've recovered." Murong Qing froze. "You're not staying for longer?" "No. Mother said, we can't be friends if we have different views in life." This sentence struck Murong Qing's heart like a burst of cold wind, turning his heart half cold. He looked at Nan Kai's departing figure, and at that moment, there was a feeling of guilt, as if his words earlier had hurt her. Just as Murong Qing wanted to chase after her, a huge figure blocked his way. The Wolf King's gaze was cold as it stared at Murongqing with eyes filled with disdain, and his voice was cold. In the wolf tribe, we only have one wife in a lifetime. We'll be together forever. Murongqing lifted his pale face, his gaze fixed upon Nankaya's figure. With the disappearance of her figure, his heart gradually became empty. It was only at this moment, Murongqing finally found himself unable to be separated from her. Since the first encounter in the savage land, that charming and pitiful face had been deeply engraved in his heart, never to be forgotten. Maiden Xia Xia is willing to be my consort, then I am willing to devote my life to protect her. The Wolf King snickered. You are not worthy, me for extra chapters. I've waited for her for so many years, and it was so hard to come to her. Now a mere human wants to steal my girl? Ridiculous. Murongqing turned to the Wolf King and stared at it for a moment before suddenly laughing out loud. Why am I not worthy? At least I'm a human, not a spirit beast. Boom. Anger surged up to the Wolf King's heart, and that surge of power was like a storm, slamming Murongqing's body backward. Murongqing was already weak, and with this attack, his handsome face became even paler as he looked up at the Wolf King. The Wolf King placed its paws on Murongqing's chest, its face expressionless. If you can't protect her for life, if you can't guard her alone, you are not qualified to stand by her side. Moreover, you're weak. The Wolf King's eyes were cold, looking down at the man on the ground. That look, arrogant and proud, made Murongqing a little annoyed. Wolfie, suddenly, a voice called out from behind it, drawing the Wolf King's attention. What are you still doing over there? We're going back to our room to rest. Only then did the Wolf King keep its claws and turn to look at the young girl not far away. My name is Nanming. You gave me the name, and you've forgotten it again? The little girl froze for a moment. She was a bit embarrassed. Oh, I have forgotten. The Wolf King was speechless. He somehow felt a little depressed. The night was quiet. Ah Bao lay next to Nanqiu, sleeping like a dead pig, snoring like thunder, but it did not wake the sleeping girl in bed. The Wolf King, who was lying on the ground, slowly stood up. The moonlight was cold and shrouded the Wolf King's body. His beautiful figure gradually turned into a human. The man was so handsome in his silver robes, overbearing and dignified, but not losing his elegance. His long silver hair swayed in this night breeze, stunningly beautiful. There was a small red mole on the man's eyebrow. The man moved as fast as the wind, and in the blink of an eye, he was by the bed. Ah Bao sensed the movement in the room and opened its eyes in a daze. What it saw at first glance was the man who was too beautiful to be real. At that moment, its heart stopped beating. It froze and trembled as the man looked at it. What do you want to do to little princess? However, before it could finish its words, the man raised his hand, grabbed the kitten, and threw it out. The man then turned to look at the sleeping girl on the bed. His long and slender fingers gently stroked her long hair, his eyes filled with gentleness. I have waited for more than 10 years to see you again. How could you be so heartless to forget me? However, even if this girl was heartless, he could not leave her. The man's gaze was fixed upon the girl on the bed. Those few days together in Land of No Return had already predestined their inseparable bond in this life. My king, me for extra chapters. The man's sleeve slightly moved. A small silver snake reared its little head and hissed. You ran away before you recovered from your injury. If those people know about it, if I don't follow her, won't she be snatched away by others? The man smiled faintly. Don't worry. I just want to watch her, and that's already enough. But the silver snake was still a little worried. Those people will not let you go. The man lowered his gaze and looked at Nanqiu. There seemed to be bottomless affection in his gaze. I know, but I had to come to her. He raised his gaze, a smile playing on his lips. As long as I can look at her, even if I have to bear worse injuries. It doesn't matter. The silver snake turned to look at Nanqiu and fell into deep thought. I don't understand what's the charm of this girl that makes him not wait to come out, just to see her. His life will be in danger if he does not recover as soon as possible. He came out for her and guarded Flower King for such a long time. waiting for the flower to bloom to give it to her. The silver snake sighed. The world of emotions is too complicated. It did not want to understand it. Otherwise, it would end up like its king and do such crazy things. Seeing the young girl's eyes twitch, the man glanced at the silver snake coldly. The silver snake was scared, and it closed its mouth, no longer daring to say a word more, afraid that it might wake the girl from her deep sleep. The young girl suddenly opened her eyes, somewhat bewildered. She froze when she saw a handsome and stunning face in front of her. "You, go back to sleep?" The man caressed the young girl's hair gently with a faint smile on his lips. Perhaps the gentle voice had made the young girl gradually close her eyes and slowly fall back to sleep. Looking at Nan Kai's innocent look, Nan Ming frowned and said, "This little girl is so naive. How could she easily trust that boy, Murong Qing? He has a bad intention." The silver snake was speechless. "King, how do you know that he has a bad intention? Just because he has his eye on this little girl?" Nan Ming pursed his thin lips. He looked at Nan Kai's beautiful little face and fell into deep thought. The night breeze brushed by, lifting his silver robe. This moment was so beautiful, like in a dream. Nan Chiu woke up the next morning. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, got up, and saw the Wolf King lying next to the bed. A bright smile grew on her face. "Wolfie, I had a dream last night. I dreamed of a good-looking man." Nan Chiu tilted her head. He was probably the best-looking man after father. Unfortunately, it was just a dream. It is said that 1,000 years ago, mother fell in love with father's beauty and brought him back. And 1,000 years later, she fell in love with father again at first sight. The Wolf King responded indifferently. But somehow, the silver snake could feel the joy in its king's heart, as if its king was about to jump happily. "Wolfie, your bracelet is so beautiful." Nan Chiu saw the silver bracelet on the wolf's hoof. She reached out her hand and caressed it. However, just as her finger touched the bracelet suddenly moved and raised its head in shock. Nan Chiu then realized that the bracelet was actually a silver snake. Me for extra chapters. However, the silver snake did not have the spirit beast's aura, so much so that she could not detect it at first. Nan Chiu was dumbfounded and looked at the Wolf King in bewilderment. The Wolf King looked at the silver snake coldly and turned to Nan Chiu. "Do you like it? It's for you." The silver snake was speechless. It froze, wanting to cry but not daring to weep. "My king, you actually want to give me to this little girl? Your Majesty, I am not a gift," the silver snake protested weakly. The Wolf King glanced at it coldly, frightened it. The silver snake trembled and instantly went to Nan Chiu. Nan Chiu touched the silver snake, smiling brightly. "This snake is really like a bracelet." "Well, it's not much different from a bracelet. I'm glad that you like it." The Wolf King's eyes were always on that little girl. When the silver snake looked up, it saw that there was still a smile in its king's eyes. This was something it had never seen before. The silver snake sneered. "The king looks like a human's dog now, well-behaved, loyal, and obedient. And he could also watch over the house." Nan Chiu rushed over, hugged the Wolf King's neck, and kissed its forehead. "Ah Ming, when Murong Qing recovers, he'll take you home, all right?" The Wolf King's eyes were as gentle as water. "All right, everything will be all right as long as you're with me." Nan Chiu stroked the Wolf King's soft fur gently. "This wolf is so beautiful that it makes people want to keep it as a pet. Better than that snow wolf." Mother had said that there was a creature called Husky in her world, which resembled the snow wolf. "Ah Ming, my family also has a wolf. Unfortunately, both of you are male wolves." Nan Chiu sighed. "Otherwise, you could have married it and be its wife. That wolf always follows my mother all day long. Father is jealous, and every time father is jealous, he will beat me." The Wolf King froze. Was it still glad that it was not a female wolf? Otherwise, this girl was going to start messing around with it. Just at this moment, the door of the room was pushed open. Two servants walked in with water basins and smiles on their faces. "Maiden Xia Xia, you are awake? The prince asked us to serve you to freshen up." Nan Chiu froze and shook her head. No need. I don't like to be served because I can do it myself. Both of you can leave. Yes, maiden. The servants put down the water basin and then walked out. The moment they left the room, the smiles on their faces disappeared. You can report back to the Empress that this girl is probably just a commoner. Otherwise, how could she not be used to having someone serve her? The Empress also told them to observe this girl for a while longer. Now, her background had been revealed. For any family with some status, how could their young lady not even be used to having someone serve her? From this, it seemed that she was just a commoner, not worthy of the prince. Another servant also had disdain in her eyes. It seems that this girl came here for glory and wealth and has seduced the prince by her beauty. The prince was weak and unable to cultivate, but he was still the noble prince. Me for extra chapters. He was the emperor's most beloved son. Not just any woman was qualified to be his wife, especially not this kind of girl who was here for the wealth. Inside the room, the Wolf King lay on the ground lazily, allowing Nenchiu to stroke his fur. However, the sound outside the room made him raise his head and gaze outside coldly. These two girls think no one will hear them, but they do not know that the wolf is the most sensitive spirit beast. Moreover, the Wolf King. Little girl, wait for me here. I'll return later. The Wolf King straightened up, turned around, and walked toward the door elegantly. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from the room. After those two servants left the room, one reported the news to the Empress, while the other one walked to the backyard. Suddenly, a silver light flashed, and he was in front of her. The servant looked up dumbfoundedly, and when her gaze fell upon the wolf's face, she suddenly started breathing heavily. She was so stunned that she did not even say a word. She had thought that the prince was the most handsome man, but the man in front of her was so stunning that no one could compare to his beauty. The old butler standing next to Murongqing asked, "Your Highness, we don't know Maiden Xia Xia's background. She has ill intentions. That won't happen." Murongqing lifted his handsome face. "Xia Xia is a kind girl, not a person with an evil-hearted. You don't have to say much about this. She now has nowhere to go, and I can't leave her alone. Maiden Xia Xia has said before that she was kicked out of her home. If I don't take her in, I am afraid she might have no place to go." The old butler looked at Murongqing's determined look and could not say more but sigh helplessly. "I don't know whether this girl is good or bad for the Prince Imperial Palace." Inside the Imperial study room, a man in dragon robes sat on the dragon chair. He flipped through the folders in his hand and asked, "Qing'er has brought back Flower King. Have you heard anything from State Preceptor? Can Qing'er consume the fruit now?" The eunuch stood by with a feather duster in his hand and said respectfully, "Emperor, this flower has been raised within the harem, and when it blossoms and bears fruit, it will be able to save the prince." The man's tightly furrowed brow loosened, and he smiled faintly. "Qing'er has gone through a lot all these years. Everyone is worried about his poor health. If the flower can heal him, it doesn't even matter if he can't cultivate. After all, if he did not recover this time, his life would be in danger, and he might die because of it." Just then, a sharp voice spoke outside the door. "Emperor, the Empress requests to meet you." The Emperor paused and said indifferently, "Let her in." "Yes, Emperor." The door was gradually pushed open. The woman dressed in a dazzling phoenix dress walked into the study room and smiled gently. The Emperor glanced at her briefly and withdrew his gaze. He remained expressionless. "Empress, I need to deal with official business now. Do you need anything?" The Empress lowered her gaze, hiding the gloom in her eyes. These years, the Emperor treated her like a guest, and even the concubines in the harem were treated better than her. Me for extra chapters. However, she knew that it was all because of that woman. He could not let that woman go. Every time he looked at her, it was like he was looking at another person through her. She was with him, but he was chanting that woman's name. "Emperor." The Empress lowered her gaze, covering the jealousy. A few moments later, she raised her face and looked at the Emperor. "I came to speak about the girl in Qing'er's residence." The Emperor froze a little and was silent for a short while. "Qing'er is not young anymore. He has never left his home all these years because of his poor health, let alone meet any girl. But he is of marriageable age now, so it is normal for him to be interested in a girl. But, the Empress said with a faint smile, Emperor, don't you think that girl is a little strange? Initially, she had wanted to use that girl to deal with Murongqing. However, the little girl was so stubborn. Therefore, she had to get rid of that girl first. Murongqing's mother stole the man she loved, so she would never let that bitch's son live happily. She tricked Murongqing to leave the palace and wanted to kill him, but he still came back alive. It was not easy to hurt Murongqing when the emperor was here. Therefore, to destroy Murongqing, she must start from his marriage and make one of her people his wife. The emperor pondered for a moment. You went to see the girl? How is she? Can she treat Qing'er well? The empress smiled bitterly. That girl is quite problematic. This morning, the servant from the prince's manor complained that the girl did not want to be served by them. Those servants have served Qing'er since childhood, and Qing'er still doesn't know about this matter. I do not dare to tell him. Moreover, that girl's wolf attacked me when I went to see her a few days ago. What? The emperor stood up with anger in his eyes. That girl is so bold? The empress lowered her gaze, hiding the cold light in her eyes. The emperor treated her coldly, but he was still very protective of her. It was only because she was that woman's best sister. Emperor, it is rare for Qing'er to be attracted to a girl, and I can't be so harsh to her. After all, it is the first time he cares so much about a woman, and I am afraid that he'll be unhappy if I say so much. Qing'er was also there that day, but it seemed like that girl had bewitched him. There is nothing I can do now. She raised her gaze and smiled bitterly. The emperor frowned. Qing'er had allowed that girl to bully the empress? But the empress is his aunt, Lainer's only sister. This matter is indeed Qing'er's fault. Empress, you don't have to be sad. Qing'er is gentle and kind, and he rarely met any girls, so that's probably why he has become like this. I will settle this matter later. The empress laughed coldly. The emperor knew that Murongqing had allowed that girl to bully her, but he still gave many excuses to back up Murongqing. However, her plan worked. Now, the emperor disliked that girl. She would never allow a girl who disobeyed her to enter the imperial family. Emperor, the empress looked up gently. Don't be too harsh with Qing'er. That girl was the reason he became so. I'm worried about Qing'er. He's still young and does not understand the human's heart. Moreover, some people would do anything for power and wealth. That girl knows a lot about the imperial family. She knew that I am not Qing'er's real mother, and she also knew that Qing'er is your most favored son. That's why she dares to be so arrogant and bully others. I'm not worried about anything else, but am worried that Qing'er will change because of her. I have spent many years teaching Qing'er well. If he changes because of that girl, how should I explain to my sister when I die? The empress gritted her teeth. As expected, the emperor's face sank after she mentioned the late empress. He pursed his lips, his expression remained cold. Guard, ask Qing'er to come to the palace now and get that girl too. I want to see what kind of girl made him so obsessed. He even dared to disrespect his aunt. Me for extra chapters. 4th Prince Manor. Murongqing stood in the courtyard. His face was still a bit pale, especially when he was under the sunlight. He looked at the little girl, who was resting on the back of a wolf not far away, and he couldn't help but smile a little. Even his eyes were filled with gentleness. Looking at her relationship with the Wolf King made him a little jealous again. However, he thought that it was just a wolf and could not help but laugh at himself. A spirit beast is just a spirit beast. Maiden Xia Xia is a human. So why should I envy a spirit beast? At this moment, a servant came in a hurry. Your Highness, the Emperor asked you to go to the palace and asked you to bring Maiden Xia Xia with you. Upon hearing this, Murongqing was first stunned. He turned to look at the young girl in front of him and pondered for a moment. Let's go. Your Highness, but Maiden Xia Xia, Murongqing smiled and shook his head. Maiden Xia Xia doesn't like being forced. She will go on her own if she wants to, but if I ask her now, maybe she might not talk to me again. He could understand this little girl's temper at a glance. He was afraid that he might not have a chance to stay by her side if he forced her. Even watching her from afar might be difficult for him. Murongqing knew Nanqiu very well, but when the emperor saw that only he came alone, his face subconsciously sank and his voice was filled with displeasure. "Qingya, didn't I ask you to bring that girl? Why are you the only one who came?" Murongqing pursed her lips and said, "Father, Maiden Xia Xia is not feeling well, so I didn't ask her to come. If father has something to say, you can tell me alone. Why do you have to see Maiden Xia Xia?" This was the first time that Murongqing had disobeyed the emperor's words. Moreover, it was for a woman. The emperor was speechless, but his son was facing him. Even if he was angry, he could not vent it out. "I heard that you like that girl, so I want to meet her. I only want to see what kind of girl can make you so fascinated to such an extent." Murongqing froze. How did father know? Was it General Lin who told him? Impossible. General Lin is not someone who would care about this matter. Moreover, there is no way he would tell the emperor these things. Could it be? Murongqing's face darkened. The feeling of being controlled by someone made him very uncomfortable, and his face sank. "Father, I don't know where you heard it from, but Maiden Xia Xia is indeed a good girl. She's beautiful, kind, and she's the most gentle girl I've ever met." If those people from the prince's manor were here, they would all sneer after hearing Murongqing's words. The most gentle girl? Then, you haven't seen her act like a wolf. How could such a girl be gentle? "Qing, no matter how good that girl is, if you want to take her as your wife, you have to bring her to me." Hearing this, Murongqing was somewhat unhappy. "I do want to marry Maiden Xia Xia, but I know that Maiden Xia Xia does not have me in her heart. Whether she is willing or not is not certain yet." Therefore, he could not force Xia Xia to come to the palace even more. He had already given Xia Xia a bad perception of him because of his words. He desperately wanted to win her heart back. How could he continue to let her misunderstand him? Me for extra chapters. He had set his heart on her. The emperor's gaze sank. She doesn't like Qingya? She's not willing to marry him? But the empress said different things to me. Unless the empress is lying, or that girl wants to take advantage of Qingya. After all, Qingya rarely leaves his manor. He can't tell who is good and who is bad. The empress has met so many people and lived in the palace for a long time. What she said should not be wrong. At least, the empress knows how to judge people's personality accurately. You have not married her yet, but you are already speaking for her. I'll go to your manor when I'm free. I want to see that girl myself, the emperor sneered. He wanted to know what kind of girl could make Murongqing so fascinated to such an extent. His son now did not even listen to his words. The old Murongqing was never like this. Murongqing's face was tense. Maiden Xia Xia does not like to meet outsiders. The last time Aunt went there, she made her unhappy. "Father, you should not go." The emperor's face darkened as he pointed at Murongqing angrily. You, however, looking at how similar Murongqing's face resembled the late empress and seeing his sickly pale face, the emperor swallowed his anger and sneered, "I think that girl has bewitched you. You're so close to throwing your family away for her." He did not understand just how beautiful that girl was to make his son, who had always been a respectful child, go to such an extent. Murongqing pursed his lips. "Father, I just don't want to force her to do something she doesn't like to do." The emperor was shocked. He slammed the table and said, "Qing, you've grown up, and you should get married. Well, find a suitable girl for you, and well prepare the wedding." "Father." Murongqing's face turned pale, looking at the emperor with disbelief in his eyes. The emperor frowned. "You are a prince. I have never asked you to marry any officer's daughter, but that girl must at least be a good woman who can help you, not destroy your life. Do you understand?" He was already considered a very enlightened father, never forcing him to marry prestigious families' daughters. After all, even the girls from those families were not all very good. Murongqing had suffered from his illness for years and had never gone out or communicated with people outside. The emperor would fulfill all his wishes because he wanted his son to be happy. But, That girl had brought a bad influence to Qingge, and if this continued, his life would be destroyed by her. He could not accept such a girl in the imperial family. Not even as a secondary consort. However, it would take some time to make Murongqing drive away that girl. On top of that, he could not force him to do so. Therefore, he must set someone up with Murongqing, and then someone would naturally teach that girl a lesson. Father! Murongqing's face turned paler, and he suddenly laughed helplessly. Now that mother is no longer with us, you want to force me to get married? The emperor's face sank as soon as he heard Murongqing mention the late empress. How dare you? How dare you threaten me with your mother's name for that woman? This was something he could never tolerate. Me for extra chapters. Even if he loved Murongqing more, the most important person in his heart was still the late empress. He could not tolerate Murongqing being so unfilial, threatening him with the late empress name. Murongqing sneered and said, "Father has forgotten that mother once said that my marriage must be decided by myself, and this is the promise you gave her before she left." The emperor usually arranged the marriages of the imperial family's members. However, his mother was afraid that his father would abandon him and forget the oath he had made after her death. Therefore, she had forced his father to promise her. Hearing that, the emperor was stunned. The angry look on his face gradually disappeared, and he fell silent. Murongqing is right. I've promised the empress not to meddle in his marriage, and I can't force him to marry a girl he does not love. It seems that I am getting old. The emperor looked at Murongqing. You aren't listening to me anymore because of that girl. Father, I only want to find my happiness. I did promise the late empress that I would never force you in your marriage. In that case, I want you to pick someone as a secondary consort. After all, secondary consort is only a concubine, not a wife, and it doesn't count as forcing you to take a wife. Father! Murongqing was shocked. His face darkened as he clenched his fists tightly, trembling. This is my final decision. You can leave now, the emperor said expressionlessly. Murongqing looked at the emperor, but he did not say anything. He simply turned around and left. The disappointment in his eyes was so obvious. It made the emperor's heart ached. Once Murongqing's figure disappeared, the emperor still had not returned to his senses, gazing in the direction he left. Have I made a mistake? But everything I do is for his well-being. Qingge was still young and naive. He would never allow anyone to hurt his son. Therefore, he would not allow that girl to enter the imperial family. The emperor's gaze became calmer as he thought of this. One day, Qingge will understand that everything I do now is for him. After leaving the imperial study room, Murongqing went straight back to his manor. From a distance, he saw Nanqiyu sitting in the courtyard. The little girl looked so beautiful. It was as if she stepped out of the paintings. Simply stunning. It seemed that the little girl also felt his gaze and turned to him. She frowned, somewhat confused. Maiden Xia Xia, Murongqing finally asked, can you stay in my manor forever? As long as she is willing to stay by my side. Even if father disagrees, I will still fight for her. Ever since he met Xia Xia, it was impossible for him to like any other woman. Nanqiyu froze, pursed her lips, and said, You'll go home when my father isn't angry with me anymore. After you go back, will you still come here? Murongqing lifted his handsome face, staring at Nanqiyu expectantly. Nanqiyu thought about it for a while before shaking her head. I'll leave after you've recovered. I also promised Nanming to travel with him through these thousands of mountains, and I can go home after the tour. This was not a place she could stay for a long time, but she had made a promise before to wait for his recovery, so she had to stay for a while. Why? Murongqing's face turned pale as he smiled bitterly. Is it because I'm not good enough here? Just say it, I can give you anything you want. Me for extra chapters. Nanqiyu looked up at Murongqing calmly. There were no emotions in her calm eyes. This is not my home, so why should I stay here forever? Indeed. This was not her home, so why should she stay? Murongqing lowered his gaze. He wanted to tell her that this place could be her home. However, he was not able to say it out loud. At this moment, he was even more envious of that Wolf King. The Wolf King could always follow Maiden Xia Xia without worrying about when she would leave it. Maiden Xia Xia, I'm sorry. Murong Qing's eyes were filled with guilt. My aunt was too rude before and she made you, Ming. Murong Qing was not done speaking, but Nanqiu had turned and saw the Wolf King walking toward her. The Wolf King walked elegantly as if it was the king of this world. However, its expression instantly turned as gentle as the spring breeze after it saw Nanqiu. Nanqiu ran toward the Wolf King smilingly and hugged its warm body. Have you sent the letter? The Wolf King smiled warmly. Great! Nanqiu smiled as bright as the stars. Murong Qing had never seen such a smile before. If mother receives my letter, she will come to bring me home. As he heard that Nanqiu was leaving, Murong Qing's heart tightened. He looked at the young girl in front of him and wanted to say something, but he choked after seeing her smile. Who am I to ask Maiden Xia Xia to stay? I've no right to stop her. Therefore, Murong Qing's eyes dimmed as he took one last look at Nanqiu and turned to leave. The Wolf King glanced at Murong Qing, and a cold light flashed in its stunning eyes. Its gaze was so cold that it could send a chill through one's body. However, soon, it withdrew its gaze and looked at Nanqiu again gently. Ming, when the time comes, would you like to come home with me? Nanqiu looked at it expectantly. Somehow, she was actually a little reluctant to part with the Wolf King. In the future, I will make a home wherever you go. I will devote all of my life to protect you. Nanqiu smiled again brightly after she heard that the Wolf King would follow her back. There are many female wolves in my house. Ming, you can pick anyone to be your wife. The Wolf King's face suddenly darkened, seemingly full of displeasure written on his face. Nanqiu noticed the change of the Wolf King. She was stunned and asked, do you not like female wolves and prefer male wolves? There are fewer male wolves in our manor, not enough for you to pick one. The Wolf King was speechless. Me for extra chapters. Its eyes changed color, and only after a second did he utter the words. I don't like any of them. Oh, Nanqiu was a little lost. Then, what do you like? I only like you. The Wolf King did not say it out loud. Its eyes darkened. It's late. If you're hungry, you can have the meal now. Nanqiu froze, seeing that the Wolf King did not want to discuss this matter. She pouted and said, Ming, you are a great wolf. I will find a good female wolf for you later. Ming is so gentle. There must be countless female wolves who would also like it. Nanqiu put her hand on her cheek. If Ming doesn't like it, he'll find the male wolves for it. Just like mother's snow wolf. However, before Nanqiu had time to think more, the Wolf King bit her dress and dragged her toward the backyard. In the past few days, Nanqiu stayed there in peace, and the Empress did not come to trouble her, but she always dreamed of a very handsome young man every night. If she had not been sure she had not seen the young man before, perhaps, she would have thought it was not a dream. It was just that the man looked too beautiful. Like a painting of a good-looking young man. It made her feel so unreal every time she saw his face in her dream. Even after she woke up, she would still remember his beauty. Moreover, she noticed that there was something wrong with Bao these few days. It seemed like it would always stare at the Wolf King resentfully. Bao, Nanqiu pondered for a moment and suddenly asked, has something happened to you recently? I keep having this feeling that you don't like Ming. Bao looked up and saw the wolf staring at it. Bao got scared and quickly lowered its head. No, oh all right. Nanqiu walked toward Bao smilingly. After all, in the future, Ming will stay our friend, so you can't have a problem with it. Bao trembled. This Wolf King is not a wolf but a cunning fox. He threw me out and wanted to have little princess to himself. I must report this matter to eldest princess. I can't let this bastard do as he wishes. It lowered its gaze. A sinister light flashed across its face. Meanwhile, in Princess Manor of Lu Yun Kingdom, Feng Ruqing leaned against the soft couch. Her long hair was like a waterfall, flowing in a stunningly beautiful way. Many spirit beasts surrounded her, massaging her back, and a few rabbits fed her fruits. Princess, Lu Li walked in the door and handed the letter in her hand to Feng Ruching. It's a letter from little princess? Feng Ruching raised her hand and took the letter. She only glanced at it before closing it and saying, "Let's go. I want to meet Nan Xian." Inside the bamboo forest, the sound of the flute floated in the air, as when they met for the first time. It was this sound of the flute that attracted her to the bamboo forest. Feng Ruching stopped in her tracks, and from a distance, she saw the man standing within the bamboo forest. She smiled and walked toward the man. "Nan Xian, Xia Xia has sent a letter." Hearing the name Xia Xia, Nan Xian's face suddenly turned cold. This girl took Qing'er away for such a long time. If someone did not teach her a lesson, she would certainly do it again next time. Me for extra chapters. She is in Chongqing Kingdom. We will go to her in a couple of days. Chongqing Kingdom was only a small city. It was not until later it became independent as a kingdom. However, this place lacked resources, so the condition there was not too good. Oh? Nan Xian hesitated for a moment. How about we go there in half a month? In 2 days? Feng Ruching glanced at Nan Xian. She has been away for too long. I miss her. Hearing this, Nan Xian pursed his lips, but he still agreed to go and get that girl back. All right, well, go in 2 days. Qing'er was the only person who made decisions in their family. So, for the time being, he would forgive that little girl. However, if she did it again in the future, he would send her away for a few years, never allowing her to return. Let's go back and prepare. When we meet Xia Xia, don't be mean to her. She's still young and a little naughty. No matter what she did, I can forgive her. But she took you away for such a long time, and I can't easily forgive her for that. After all, she has received her punishment. We will take her home in a couple of days. Great. Feng Ruching smiled brightly. Looking at Feng Ruching's stunning smile, Nan Xian extended his hand and pulled her into his arms. Qing'er, let's give her another little sister and brother to play with? Feng Ruching was slightly stunned. She turned to those children running wildly in the courtyard. Her expression darkened. Aren't these enough? It's not enough for her. Otherwise, why would she always pester you despite having younger siblings? Feng Ruching's expression darkened even more. It's enough already. She did not want her manor to be filled with more people. Otherwise, they might not be able to afford to feed these little kids. Nan Xian extended his hand and pulled Feng Ruching into his arms. He then smiled stunningly. Let's go. Since Nan Qiyu is not here, we should spend more time together. Once she returns, it might be hard for me to be with you again. Other children were also clinging to Feng Ruching, but the most clingy one was Nan Qiyu. At least the others would not try to take her away from him. So he had to plan something for Nan Qiyu. Back then, Mu Ling found a future wife for him, but she became Feng Ruching's little follower, thus treating him as a love rival. Now, even his daughter had become so. It was really bothering him. Shao Qing, are you leaving? Tang Yin had just walked into Princess Manor when she saw the two hugging each other. She refused to leave, biting her lip. Feng Ruching froze. I'm going to Chongqing Kingdom. What's wrong? Oh, nothing. It's just that many Luyun Kingdom people can't bear for you to leave for a day. Last time you were abducted by Xia Xia for too long, and now you're leaving again. I have to talk to them so that those people don't keep surrounding Princess Manor. Feng Ruching was speechless. She felt that since she came back last time, this group of people had become perverts. Nan Xian, let's go back to our room first. Feng Ruching took Nan Xian's hand. Nan Xian nodded slightly and glanced at Tang Yin coldly. Next time, if someone disturbs Qing'er, I will directly make them accompany Nan Qiyu. Tang Yin's gaze was filled with aggression as she looked at Feng Ruching pitifully. Shao Qing, this man is bullying me. Oh? Feng Ruching raised her eyebrows. How come I didn't see that? At that moment, Tang Yin's face changed dramatically, and she almost cried out loud. Shao Qing has changed me for extra chapters. She is ignoring me because of this bastard. Tang Yin cried out like a 200-pound child and ran away in tears. Outside Princess Manor, many people came and went, and some even took brooms to clear the courtyard for her. There were even people who would often leave some things inside the manor. Some were expensive food from a restaurant, and some spirit herbs they found outside the kingdom. The people of Lu Yun Kingdom would not forget that if it were not for Feng Ruqing, all of them would have died now. When Tang Yin walked out, she saw those people standing at Princess Manor's entrance. She paused and said, "You don't have to come here in the next few days." Xiao Qing said she would go on a trip to Chongqing Kingdom, and she will not return for a bit. It is useless for you to come if you can't see her. Hearing this, everyone was stunned and asked, "Why is Princess going to that small place, Chongqing Kingdom?" "I don't know." Xiao Qing didn't say why. Tang Yin rubbed the back of her head. Xiao Qing only cares about that bastard. How could she answer too many questions from others? Annoying. At least, I'm now a part of Xiao Qing's family, but Xiao Qing is still biased as usual. However, hearing Tang Yin's words, the crowd seemed a bit disappointed. She's leaving Lu Yun Kingdom again. Last time, she was abducted by Little Princess for such a long time, so no one knows how long it will take for her to come back this time. The people of Lu Yun Kingdom had long gotten used to her presence and naturally did not want her to leave the kingdom. If they come, notify me, and I will meet them personally. He stroked his sleeve and spoke boldly. The Empress' face was also filled with joy. She had only heard rumors of these two people and just saw them through the portrait. She had never imagined that she would be able to see them in person. "Emperor," the Empress lowered her gaze and smiled faintly. "Why don't we guess what they are here for? Do you know why?" The Emperor looked at the Empress in surprise. Through Princess Ruqing's movements over the years, we surely know about her love for young girls. She has taken in some talented young girls as disciples over the years, and Lu Qingqing that Emperor mentioned just now is one of the talented girls in our Chongqing Kingdom. Lu Qingqing was weak but intelligent. If the Emperor wanted to find a concubine for Murongqing, she would be the first to come to mind. However, she was still useless because her weakness made her an easy target to be controlled by others. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.